anything I really want to do, I just try it because I'm like, you either can excel or fail, but either way, it's a learning lesson.
Yep.
So I just set out to write a book. You know,
Okay.
I'm like, hey, I probably can do this. You
Yeah.
know, just sit down, write every day.
Sure.
Good to have that open dialogue and be able to have mature conversations about it, because I feel like it's conversations that really need to be talked about.
Welcome to the Biz Life Podcast. I am Donnie Bedore, your host, and we are here to talk about the business life, not the busy life. So on today's episode, I have some very special guests. They're actually family of some friends of ours that were on a podcast probably about a month or two ago. So Tiffany and Jason Bell, right? That was such a great episode. We laughed and, oh my gosh, they're just a hoot.
Yes.
So we have Deja.
Yes.
That's pronounced that correct?
Yes.
Good. And Amber?
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. So how are y'all related to the Bell family?
Well,
So Jason is my cousin. His mother and my mother are sisters.
Okay. All right. Good. So as soon as we get off the air, I'm going to ask you some questions and you can really give me some insight. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Give me some good dirt on Jason.
Uh-oh.
Now, did y'all grow up together? Like, were y'all really close?
Not
Okay.
that close, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's like my cousins. I would see them once or twice a year, maybe, right? Some family reunions, things like that, but really didn't grow up with them and anything like that. So anyway.
Yeah, and lots of siblings. So yeah, I have a lot of
Okay.
cousins.
All right. Good. Well, let's start off. I always like to start off the podcast with introducing y'all and letting you tell us a little bit about yourself. But before we do that, we want to acknowledge the audience. Thank y'all so much for watching this episode. Please like, share, subscribe out. It really does help us grow the channel. And man, just looking forward to this episode and hope you do too. Okay. So who would like to go first? Deja?
I'll go first.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Deja. I am 27. I'll be 28 in a few weeks.
All right.
On September 5th.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl,
Oh, how old are they?
9 and 10.
Ah, perfect fun age.
Yes.
Yeah. It's right before they know everything.
Mine are a little bit different. I feel like they're older than they've been here before.
They already know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to tell you. I got it.
I am currently in the aviation and aerospace world.
Okay.
And I recently started a new business venture
Yeah.
with online retail.
Nice. Excellent. Good. And Miss Amber?
Right. My name is Amber. I'm 38.
Okay.
And I'm actually related to Deja. She's my niece.
Okay.
But I do work for JPS, John Peter Smith Hospital, in the scheduling department.
Okay.
And an author, published.
Nice.
I am divorced, single.
Okay. Did you hear that? All right. Here we go. The dating show on the Biz Life. All right.
So that's me in a nutshell. Just
Yeah.
I'm open to I like to try different things, and
Yeah.
so I tried different businesses and ventures. And
Awesome. Very, very good. So you're sort of like a little entrepreneur that you just can't sit still.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any adventures that you enjoyed?
Yes, well, I'm actually trying to start a band.
Really?
Yes, I do
Okay.
sing a little bit. So
Okay. You know,
I'm a
Jason
drummer,
plays.
Yes.
Jason plays.
Yes.
He's pretty good too.
He is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Very good. What style of music?
So I like R&B soul music.
Heck yeah.
Probably like a cover band.
There you go. Love it. You know what's crazy is it really a majority of our guests that have been on the show are very musical talented. Yeah. It's really crazy.
Interesting.
You would never know. And they're like, oh, yeah, I play this and that. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yes, my personality most people don't know.
Okay.
I'm very quiet. They're like, you can sing? Matter of fact, I can't.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Do you have any videos out on social media of you singing yet?
Not yet, but I'm trying to get my portfolio up.
There you go. You know, TikTok's a good platform for that.
Yes.
A lot of people have been discovered on TikTok.
Yes.
I have not been discovered yet.
Me neither.
See, there you go. Anyway, we digress. All right. Well, let's go into. So we were talking a little bit before, the episode, and one thing that I found interesting was that y'all also do a podcast.
Yes, we do.
Actually, 2, right?
Yes.
2.
Yeah. So let's talk about those real quick. Because one thing that I really enjoy just in life is to try to uplift other people, right? And to spotlight them and help them out, right? And so one thing that, I'd like to do during this is, let's talk about your podcast.
Okay. Well, the first one we originally started, it was actually four of us?
Four. It started out as four.
And then it trickled down to just us two.
Okay.
So the podcast is really just about hot topics.
Okay.
Although lately we've been mostly talking about politics and religion.
Got it. Pretty hot topics. Yeah.
So I feel like we just, even whenever we try to steer away from it, somehow we just
end up back at
it. Comes back. Yeah.
It comes right back.
Okay.
And then we started recently a podcast with our church.
Okay.
So it's called A Change for Christ, the podcast. And then the first one is Down Unapologetically.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And that one is pretty interesting. Being able to have open dialogue and kind of change like the church dynamic with conversations, because my beliefs are different than, well, not too different than hers, but it's good to have the open dialogue and be able to have mature conversations about it, because I feel like it's conversations that really need to be talked about.
Yeah, for sure. I always say that. Shoot, what do I always say? Anyway, I'll think of it here in a minute whenever I'm not thinking of it, you know, how that works. All right. Well, what was the podcast that y'all have had for quite some time, right? Can you walk me through that? Because I'm obviously a believer in podcasting, right? Yes. I really think it's a media that's not very utilized and can be utilized
right.
For business and for church and really any kind of organization, right? Mm-hmm. What was y'all's thought process into starting that?
Actually, it was me.
Okay.
Well, no. We actually talked about it like a year prior to actually coming back to it. But it was like a jokingly talk because me and my family, we have debates all the time.
Okay. So
we joked about like doing it like a podcast because we literally do it every time we're together. So he's like, why don't we just film it?
There you go.
And then it just went away. And then I rekindled with a cousin. And she mentioned about doing like a podcast. And so I was like, okay, well, let me message her and see if she's open to it. And then it just started rolling.
Because I mentioned the wine down only because we like to sip our wine and talk.
Heck yeah.
So I was like, hey, a lot of these conversations we have, people want to talk about it. And we just sip our wine and have those conversations. I'm like, well, what about wine down? Where we can just have a drink and talk about those things that people want to talk about.
You know, and I loved how you said earlier, right, that you have maybe different viewpoints on things, right? And so one thing that I always say, it just came back to me, by the way, is contrast is the conduit to clarity. Okay. Contrast is the conduit to clarity. So having those opposing ideas are really great. We shouldn't shy away from that, right? We really shouldn't shy away from having opposing ideas, right? It's not let's draw a line in the sand, and if you don't come on my side, then we can't be friends, right? And I love how y'all have sort of developed that in your podcast, right? I think it's so important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
I feel like the less we talk about things, the more and more violence can occur. Because you're not really understanding where the other person is coming from. You're just assuming. Yeah. And then, of course, I'm an overthinker, and I'm pretty sure other people are too. So you're just sitting with your own thoughts and making up scenarios in your head.
Yep. You can have a whole conversation, right? A whole conversation. And you like go back and you're like, and like, what the heck? I wasn't even thinking of that. And you've already built this whole scenario in your mind.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it.
That's why I like the Change for Christ podcast, because we actually have that one at the church. So the church is open for people to come in and sit in like a live audience. Yeah. And so we ask questions. We normally have a panel, but then they can ask questions as they come in also. So I really like that one because it gives everybody a voice. Yeah. Especially about religion, because that's a touchy type thing. Oh, yeah. And it's open. We have a pastor there, of course, too, that can answer questions from that perspective. Yeah. But then regular people who may not be as in depth with the Bible, and we can all have that conversation. So I like that one too.
I love it. So we'll stay on the podcast for a second. On the podcast, where do you typically host the podcast? On YouTube or?
really. So Wind Down lately, we've been just going live on Facebook.
Okay.
We will be starting back filming on the 30th, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
And that we don't really have a designated platform.
Okay.
We're really still trying to figure out, but people can mostly find us on Facebook.
We're at on what's the handle or the
it's Wind Down unapologetically.
Okay.
And then the A Change for Christ one is Facebook as well. It's on the A Change for Christ Ministries Facebook page.
And y'all go live on that one as well?
Yes. Yeah. And we also have a YouTube page for that one.
Okay. And then the one that y'all two do is that
Wind Down Unapologetically.
Okay. So that one's called so the one y'all do is Wind Down. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm following you now. All right. Nothing slow about me. Excellent. So I want to also ask you, you had said earlier that you wrote a book.
Yes.
Yeah, that you're an author.
Yes, I am.
What intrigues me about that is my wife and I, we have a different story in our marriage. And I probably me more than her, have really wanted to write a book about it. And so, yeah, tell me about that. I want to learn about this.
Yes, it's just a process. I mean, like I said, anything I really want to do, I just try it because I'm like, you either can excel or fail, but either way, it's a learning lesson.
Yep.
So I just set out to write a book. You know, I'm like, hey, I probably can do this. You know, just sit down, write every day. And then eventually I had more and more questions about it. So I actually had a friend that's published. Okay. And so I reached out to her, to ask questions. And along the way, she would give me little tidbits. And then it happened to have someone that I work with tell me about a website where you could self-publish. So I'm like, hey, let's just do that. So I got in, did it, ended up finishing the first novel, which was 55,000 words.
Goodness.
And so, self-published. And then, of course, word of mouth, just telling people, hey, I published a book. It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
And so people bought it. And I was just blown away by the response, just off something that I just thought I could do.
I'll be darned. What type of book is it? So
this is an urban fiction book.
Okay.
So it's a little bit out there, especially from my personality. Like when people read it, they're like, I could not believe you wrote that. So it's a lot like drama filled. And it takes you on a whole ride. And so I actually wrote a second part to it as well. And then I'm actually working on the third part. But this has been over a span of 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you just wake up one day and say, I want to write a book, or where did that come from?
Just me reading a lot of books. Like, I literally just read. And so one day I think it was a book that I read where they killed off a main character.
I hate that.
I was so mad that I'm like, why would they do this? So I'm like, what? If I wrote a book, I could do whatever I want. So I just sat down one day. I'm like, you know what? Let's just... And the way it flows out is the best part of writing to me. Because I even surprised myself, like, where is this story going? Like, I would stop sometimes, and at the time I was married, I would tell my husband, like, I can't even believe where this is going. Like, this is coming out of me. Wow. It's a good process, too, for somebody that just wants to have a place to vent or a thing to do. Yeah. So that was the best part of the process, just seeing it unfold. Yeah.
I used to be really heavy in journaling, right? I would journal every day, and especially whenever we were going through some of our marital problems in our life. And, journaling was such a powerful tool. And I could see how writing a book like that would be as well, too. Yes.
And a lot of people were like, so is any of this real life? Or where'd you get these? So I had to convince people, no, I don't know anybody like this. I promise. It's all fictional. Nobody was,
hilarious.
Inspired.
Yeah. Excellent. And so the book, I would assume Amazon.
Yes. So on Amazon, the book is called Ruthless Mother. So there's a part 1 and a part 2. Okay.
Well, I'll put it in the description of the podcast here. So excellent. Very cool. Do you plan on writing a book too?
Actually, we talked about doing a dating book.
Okay. Like a romance novel type thing?
No, our experiences.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Once again, being single.
And then we also talked about doing a book about our life, but doing each chapter from our view.
Oh, okay. Sort of like bouncing back and forth.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because we're 10 years apart. So I'm like, if we were to write a book, and of course she's coming into it as if we're telling our story, so she has a totally different view than I do.
Sure.
So I'm like, that would be interesting.
That would be cool. That'd be cool. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about work. Okay. This is the Biz Life. So those that are watching are typically new entrepreneurs, people that have just started business. Maybe there's some that have been in business for quite some time and they just like to, have some fresh content to watch or whatever. Right. So you said that you worked at JPS.
Yes.
Right. What position are you at there?
So currently I'm a patient access call center supervisor. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But basically what I do is we work in the call center that schedules for JPS and all the primary care clinics. And I'm just a supervisor over the agents.
All right. And so how many agents do you typically supervise?
So I have currently 15 agents.
Okay. All right. And I would assume that you were doing that position at one time and then got promoted up?
Yes.
Yeah. How long would you work at the call center?
So I was actually an agent in the call center for 9 months before being a supervisor.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, again, because I enjoy communication, right? And it's such an art, right? Communicating either through, writing a book or through podcasting or through a call center, right? And whenever the people that you were talking to, right, you only had a few minutes probably to speak with them and to get the information, right? What did you find really helped you in your communication when it was talking to people on the phone?
On the phone, it's your tone. That just sets because you may get a person that as soon as you say hello, they're yelling.
Right.
They're upset.
Yeah.
And you have to take control of that conversation. So your tone sets it. If you start off talking low, you'll eventually see they'll calm down. Their voice will lower. And so you have to take control of the call. Like we always tell our agents, like, you're the driver of the vehicle. Wherever the conversation is going, you got to steer it back on course.
Right.
And that just turns the whole thing around.
Yeah.
I always tell them, watch your tone and then empathy, of course.
I love it. And I really like this subject as well too, because a lot of business owners, they'll start their business on the phone, right? The customer will call in and they only have a couple minutes to steer that conversation. And especially when it comes to business, like in sales, the customer may not know exactly what to ask. So as the call center person or someone answering the calls, you have to really know how to steer that conversation. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's why I say it can make or break you, because if you start to raise your voice, that's going to totally, that's going to make things. So just stay calm. I'm like, no matter the situation, if you're in control,
Yeah. And again, communication isn't just with words. It's the way that you breathe out.
Yes.
They're like, what?
We also say smiling because they can't see your face, but when you smile, your voice kind of takes on that smile. So you can tell if you're upset. Monotone voice, that means you don't really care. You're not interested. So I tell them it's all about, without looking at you, they can tell if you're interested or not interested.
True story. Yeah. One of my previous jobs, we told the call center person to put a mirror in front of their desk, right? And that way you can see yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I like that tip. Cool. So worked on the call center, got promoted, right? And now you just get to sit there and listen to these conversations.
Yes, and it's a lot. I used to say I wasn't a people person, but now I'm like, I think this has helped me to become a people person. Because different personalities to deal with is really a job. So we have those people that you have to, guide them through everything. And then you have those people that are more, self-sufficient, that can handle things.
Yeah.
So I'm really learning a lot. Like this has helped me to become a well-rounded person. Really.
There you go.
Yes.
Absolutely. Great. And what do you think makes the difference between someone that is self-sufficient and those that just need a little bit more coaching, right? What do you think?
It's the individual person and personality. Because I think I've been there in stages. Like starting out, I was more like, okay, I need somebody to tell me what to do and then I can do it.
Right.
As you grow, then okay, I don't have to have anybody to tell me. I just see what needs to be done and I can do it. So I think it's really stages. And I've seen people that can grow and I've seen people that didn't quite make it.
Right.
So it's all the what you put into it too.
Nah.
It's just sometimes you have to work harder to get to a level, and some people don't have to work necessarily as hard. So it's just what you put into it.
Yeah. What do you think, Deja?
I agree. I feel like for one, you have to be self-motivated with anything that you do in life. And then also I feel like what gets a lot of people is the victim mindset that they have developed over time.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that as soon as you go into that victim mindset, you're already done. So
yeah. I posted a comment today, and it's just something I've told myself and I've told my kids is if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Hey, there you go.
yes.
You know? And that definitely takes you out of that victim mindset, because it's like, look, if whatever life that I'm going to build, I got to put in the work.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to put in the work, then you're living someone else's dream versus building your own dream.
I'm telling you.
And I feel like if people really realize, if you go far back enough, you'll realize that each time it comes down, it's your fault and it's no one else's fault, really. Everybody has a sad story, of course.
Sure.
But you're not the only one, and you can either let that make you or break you.
Yeah.
And I'm just a firm believer that you should use your story as a testimony and not as a weight to hold you down.
I love that. You're pretty wise. Yeah. Pretty wise young lady. Yeah. Not bad.
Well, I hang around her all the time, so.
There you go. All right.
Hey, you taught me a lot, so don't think that.
And there's a lot of truth to that, right? I do martial arts as well too, right? And so just because someone is younger doesn't necessarily mean I can't learn from them, right? And same with like our belt ranks, right? You could have a lower belt rank that if you listen to them, you can learn a lot from them as well too. So
Sure.
I love it. So on your podcast, let's get into. I don't mind getting into a little politics and religion on the Biz Life, right?
Cool.
What is a hot topic that y'all talked about on your podcast recently?
The most recent live was about absent mothers.
Okay.
And the trauma that comes with it, because I know we hear all the time about absent fathers, deadbeat fathers.
Yeah.
But it's not really talked about the absent mothers. And then you hear like daddy issues and this and that.
Not
but
true.
No one talks about the daughters that don't have their mother, which I feel like is a stronger thing than just their dad not being there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a big one.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people can relate to that.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of people like, this is not talked about as much. I'm like, yeah. So
You're right. You really don't hear that much. So yeah, I mean, growing up, my mom and dad, they were married early in the age, and they're still married, right? So they've always been around, and so for me, don't really connect necessarily with that, but I could definitely see how many could.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then that's what, and most times we get the inspiration from TikTok.
Okay.
So a lady did a live. She was like, I went on a rant about, my relationship with my mom because she wasn't really present. And she was like, a lot of people reached out and was like, hey, I could relate to that. Nobody talks about it.
I'll be darned.
So I reached out to her. I'm like, hey, we got to talk about it.
Yeah. No kidding, right?
Yeah, it did well. We had a lot of interaction.
Oh, wow.
I was surprised.
Yes.
Okay.
And not just absent mothers or the mothers that are there physically, but they're absent like emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
And that's just as worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a misconception, right? It's like, hey, I'm here, right? But if you're not here,
Yes.
then you're not there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. A few podcasts ago, I'd asked our guest, I said, okay, what's the worst thing that you've ever done? Right. And it was really raw and honest. He's like, you know what? He said, I think the worst thing is being at home with my kids. They're little, and not being present with them. Right. An email comes in and I'm over here, dealing with this and this. And before you know it, it's time to put them to bed. And, I never really got that chance to spend with them as they're growing up. And it's so important, right?
Very.
Yeah. No, I like that. Absentee doesn't necessarily mean physically absent.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. What are some thoughts on that y'all come up with?
Well, So I have personal experience with it.
Okay.
As so does she. And her story ended differently than mine. So I was not saying it like that, but it was good because we were able to give two different perspectives and then also show people we both still came out okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like my mom was just not there in general.
Okay.
Not to bash her or anything.
Sure.
But I feel like sometimes if she would have been there, it might have been worse. Just because she hadn't healed from some of the things that happened to her in her prior life.
Yeah.
And her mind was too far gone at the time. And I feel like also as kids, we tend to not humanize our parents, or we don't realize that they had a life prior to us getting here.
Right.
So I feel like once you mature enough and you get to a healed enough spot in your life, you're able to then sympathize with them and actually sit down and have that talk with them to get whatever closure you need. But I still think it's important to also try to sympathize with them or understand what happened, because people just don't wake up and be like, okay, I want to just be gone, or I want to get on drugs. There was a turning point. So it would help you also to heal as well.
That's pretty wise. Smart young lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like she said, we both had different dynamics. Like my mom was in our household, but she wasn't present.
Yeah.
And so it was a different kind of, but then also I had my dad who was present, who always talked to me. And I say this all the time. He talked to us, like we were adults, but not overwhelmingly, but just sitting us down saying, hey, this is what this is.
Yeah.
But he would ask, how do we feel about it? So I always had a sense of, okay, this is what my mom's doing. I don't agree with it, but I'll respect her. I love her anyway. And then it came to a point when I was an adult where I was able to have a conversation with her to ask, okay, why did you do this? Or what were you feeling at this time? So I got that understanding as an adult that she was, a young woman that was going through life herself. Sure. Dealing with different things. And I'm like, okay, well, I can see how, that could happen. Yeah. So I empathize with her, and we have an awesome relationship now. Good. So like she said, we both got different outcomes, but we both ended up okay.
Right.
So I want people to, understand that, hey, it may not go how you want it, but you have to, at the end of the day, be able to internalize things and be able to say, okay, I don't want to deal with that, or I can deal with that.
I love that. It reminds me. So here recently, I went on a canoe trip. I have a friend that is canoeing all the way across Canada.
Oh, Lord.
He's never canoed at all in his life.
Oh, my God.
Never. Yeah, he's adventurous. He's crazy. Sold his house 10 years ago just to go travel the world.
I strive to be that.
I know, right? Like he lived in New Zealand, and he was he owned his own business. And I had him on the show while I was with him in Canada. We just made a makeshift podcast room in the hotel we were in at the very end of the trip. Anyway, so that being said, he was telling me his story as we're on this canoe trip, because there's nothing else to do on the canoe other than row and talk, right? So we can do 250 miles. Oh. And that's just a small little section compared to what he's doing. Right. So I was only with him for like 7 or 8 days. And so he's telling me the story, right? And about how he had lost his dad and, all this trauma that you would think, oh my gosh, you have no chance in life to be anything at this, just in taking a total negative look at it. But you look back at his life and it's like, man, everything that he talked about, I can see where it led him to this, where he's at now. Right. And it reminded me of a movie. I don't know if y'all have seen it. It's an old movie. It's called Slumdog Millionaire. Okay. So it's about a little kid that's in India, and it starts off the show where he's on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Okay. And they're asking him these questions. And then when they ask him a question, it flashed back to his life where he knew the answer to the question. And I mean, this kid had a horrible life, sold off into slavery basically, and all this stuff. But he goes on the show and he wins Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? And so it's called Slumdog Millionaire. It's a freaking good show. You should watch it. It's really, really good. But his story reminded me of that, right? And so many people like y'all, your story reminds me of that, is that whenever you look back in life, it's so funny how you can see this common thread that sort of like led you to where you're at today.
Yes.
Quick little shout out and then we'll move on. So his canoe trip, he calls me about 3 weeks ago because I'm also helping him with his fulfillment store on his website with all of his merch and his swag and things like that. Anyway, so he calls me. He's like, man, my channel's not doing as good as I need it to do because, and I can say this now because the episode just came out, is he capsized his canoe and he lost everything. And so, I mean, he lost his canoe. He lost everything he owns was in the canoe. Oh, because he doesn't have a home. He just travels the world. And his backpack, his GoPro, his camera, everything was lost. The only thing he had was a thing of bear spray that fell out of the canoe, and that was it. And one GoPro that was on his head. So he has the GoPro and his crazy story. And so they end up finding the canoe. He met this couple that reached out to the entire town. Everybody was looking for it, and they found it. It's pretty cool. But it was $10,000 that he lost. And so that's about 6 months of his journey. So he mapped it out. I can do this whole thing for a year. And 6 months of it was roughly about 10 grand. And so he had to rebuy everything. So he spent 10,000. And here's where the thread comes out. Is he messaged me like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's like, man, my channel's not doing the greatest. I'm really worried because I only have roughly about 6 months left because I have to cut this short because of all the money. And he's sitting there canoeing, and he literally hears like a faint dog bark. It's like, woof, woof. It's like, what the heck? So he looks over and he looks back. He had already passed this thing, and it was a Great Pyrenees that was stuck in the mud. He was like, what the heck is that? It's a dog. So he goes over there and he finds this dog. He's like, this is really weird, right? And so he gets out of the canoe, gets in the mud, and picks up this dog and puts it on his canoe. And it's literally I don't know if you know a Great Pyrenees, but they're like 150 pounds, right? They're a huge dog. So he picks up this dog, puts it on his canoe, and he's like, what the heck? And he was looking at the bank, and he saw where there were some dog prints going back to this dock on this river that he was on. Goes back to that, takes the dog out of the boat, and sort of finds this house, goes up to it, and knocks on the door. This guy answers, and he's like, hey, I found this dog out by the river here. I'm canoeing across Canada. Sounds weird, but I found this dog, and you know anybody that's missing a dog? And he's like, is it a big white dog? Yeah. He's like, man, I've been missing that dog for 2 days. That's my dog. Yeah, it's a crazy story. So he returns the dog back. Right, great story. Well, he had posted a short on his YouTube channel, and it now has almost 6 million views.
Oh, wow. Look.
Yeah. And so Canada, all the news stations in Canada heard about it. So he's been interviewed by multiple news stations over this last week. And then the New Zealand news heard about it. So New Zealand news calls him and do a Zoom interview with him. Okay. And so his channel went from 12,000 subscribers to almost 50,000 in like 2 weeks.
That's how God works.
Go.
And you look back and you're like,
that's how we work.
There's a common thread. Really weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's freaking fun to be a part of and watch. I'll plug that story as well in the bottom of this podcast. Y'all would really love that.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, just with the whole absentee parent, mom, dad, whatever, right? And you look back at your life and you're like, man, I could be in a different place right now.
Yeah.
With trauma. And we all have it, right?
Yes.
I mean, those watching, you have some trauma or something horrible that you went through that we always wish we could go back and change that. But really, should we wish that we could change it? Or should we look at it and say, you know what? That's what's made me who I am today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And I think, for business, like last year in business was a pretty tough year for one of our businesses. And I'm really thankful for that. Number one, that we've survived the hard time, right? It's not that we're out of the water yet, but you look back and you're like, man, if I wouldn't have gone through this tough time, I wouldn't have pushed so hard, and I wouldn't have been where I'm at today if it was an easy road.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
And you wouldn't have learned some of the things that you know now either to get you where you are now.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. I mean, this podcast really came from that, to be honest with you.
okay.
Yeah. So, and I wouldn't have met y'all.
Yeah.
There you go.
Look back, common thread.
Yeah. Everything happens for a reason.
It does. I'm a firm believer in that. There's not many coincidences in this world.
No.
I mean, unless it's me winning the lottery, because I don't buy tickets. So that would definitely be a coincidence. Yeah. So anyway, it's just something to think about.
Very much so.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if y'all are watching still, again, you're probably my wife or maybe a couple friends, or maybe you're Jason and Tiffany Bell. But no, we thank y'all for watching. Please, again, like, subscribe, comment. Hey, if you found this episode interesting, or if it touched or inspired you, please comment below. I get so many people that will come up to me. Like today, I had several come up and like, man, I've just really been enjoying your podcast. I'm like, man, I really appreciate that. Here's what I need you to do. If you're enjoying it and you're listening, comment. Please comment or like, subscribe, share out.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get that a lot too.
Yeah.
Or we'll be like, oh, we've been watching you. And you'll be like, how?
You have.
don't
Let's
see
interact. Let's interact. And here's another thing that I'm going to request for those, and I'll probably start requesting this on almost every show, is if you are watching, please put in the comments of maybe the topic or the subject that you would like to see on the Biz Life. That way I make sure I give you what you want, right? If not, I'm just going to be throwing darts hoping that I hit a target, right? But if you let me know what you want, then look, I can craft something up that'll help you out, all right? Because I might know a few people. And if not, they may know some people.
There you go.
So, yeah. All right. Well, let's do this. This is always something fun I like to do at the end, right? I always like to say, hey, tell me about the worst thing you've ever done. But I'm not going to pick on y'all. So I'm going to say, tell me a funny story. Because I feel like with y'all's interaction, y'all may have some funny stories here that, or if you want to tell me something about Jason Bell, that's okay too.
Amber, you want to go first?
A funny story?
Yeah.
No, I need time to think. You go.
Or something that nobody knows about you. I'm okay with that one too.
That's hard. You go. Let me think.
I put y'all on the spot.
Yes.
I like the hot seat.
I heard the crickets.
I don't like this.
Yeah, something someone doesn't know.
Something that someone. I'm trying to think. What do y'all not know about me?
I don't know a lot about you.
Okay. Well, she knows a lot. I sometimes go to open mics.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I have been trying to get myself. I mean, I used to write a lot when I was a lot younger.
A lot younger. You're only 27. You're still young. Oh my gosh. No, I'm just kidding. I get it.
But that kind of went away over time.
Yep.
Just life, of course.
Now, open mic as far as singing or
Poetry. I cannot sing. She's a singer.
All right. Poetry. Okay. That's interesting.
I've been wanting to get back out there doing that stuff, but I haven't really found the full, how can I say, creative outlet. I've been just so focused on work and business that I haven't really just had time to focus on it. But yeah, so I do go to open mics every now and then. I don't perform all the time, but I have once or twice.
There you go. All right, Amber.
So I had time to think. Well, I'll tell a funny story because I don't have. Which so she's my oldest niece. So, but
am I in this story?
No, not really. Not really.
It's a fiction story. The identity is covered up for.
But like I said, her mom is my older sister, my oldest sister. And so I taught all of my nieces and nephews how to swim.
Okay.
But what they don't know is her mom taught me how to swim, which she didn't. She actually
By throwing you in the water.
She let me jump off the diving board.
Knowing you couldn't swim.
And knowing I could not swim.
She's like, go ahead.
This was a long time ago with Forest Park, used to be in Fort Worth. And it was the diving board there. And so she went with me and I told her, I'm gonna jump off the diving board. And she was like, you sure you want to do it? I said, yeah. So we get to the diving board. She tells the lifeguard right there, hey, she can't swim. And he says, well, why is she on the diving board? But I jumped off.
Okay.
And I swam underwater as long as I could hold my breath. And by the time I stood up, I was in like 4 feet of water.
Oh, there you go.
So I just kept doing it.
Okay.
But I could have drowned, and it was her mom's fault.
Got over that fear real quick.
I got one story though.
See,
since
now
you want to
she-
bring
now
up,
she wants to go.
because
Oh, you want to bring up that? Okay.
Yeah, since you want to call out my mother, let's talk about how you almost had me drown in Oklahoma whenever we were trying to swim to the island.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks for watching the video. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So we all went on like a family vacation to Broken Bow.
Okay, been there.
And
Cool place.
we all know how to swim, but I haven't went swimming in a while.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of out of shape. So there's like an island in the middle of the water. And she was like, oh, it don't look far. Why don't we just swim out? So me being just following blindly, I'm like, sure, why not? So halfway, I was already feeling like I'm not going to make it. If I don't turn around, I'm just going to say my goodbyes and just go ahead
It
and
may
just...
have been 500 yards out, I think.
No.
That's a good distance, though.
When I got
swimming.
there, I was tired too. But
Yeah, that's a good
I
distance.
turned back and then she was like, where'd you go? I was like, I came back to the shore.
Oh, man.
Yes.
But it was fun.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, swimming is definitely, I think, something everybody needs to know, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll finish up. And thank you all so much for being on the Biz Life. And yeah, I had a great time with y'all.
Yes, I did too.
We
It was
appreciate you
fun.
for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank y'all again for watching the Biz Life. We'll see you next week as, we come back. See you later. Thanks.